Okay, so here's what you're going to need for this particular stage of the project. You're going to need your trusty gum tape. Okay, this is the kind of do everything material really that we're using throughout the project. You're going to need the base mask that you made right at the beginning of term, and then the only other thing you're really going to need is another opened out cereal box. This is a sort of small-ish size cereal box. That's kind of what you want really. I guess you can go bigger than that, that's fine, but no smaller than this. This is really what we're looking for. And we're really also needing this to be a kind of rectangular cereal box, like this type of thing. That proportion of the big sides to the short side is quite important for this particular stage. In addition to that, you're just going to need a pair of scissors, and it's kind of useful to have something just to kind of draw and mark with as well. I'm just going to use this oil pastel here. So here's what we're going to do to get started. To begin with, I've opened up my box like this. I'm just going to cut off what the small side that's left at the edge when you open a cereal box out in this way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off, but I'm not going to cut it off completely. I'm just going to leave a slight little tab in the same way that I have at this side over here. So I'm going to cut down there, leaving around about 1 centimetre or so of that side left. And just take that off and take that off. So I've kind of got like a symmetrical box shape like this. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 more folds into this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold along here, okay, about the same width, the same thickness as that central kind of panel there. I'm just going to put another fold down here. Okay, so let's have a look. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so I've got a fold like this, and then the same again at the other side. Now, as with all of these videos, the kind of reason we're doing it like this, I guess, with pre-recorded videos is so that you can pause, rewind, replay sections of this as we go along, in case you get slightly lost. But I'll try and go as slowly as I can so that you can follow it quite easily. So here we have our kind of folded box shape like this. The next thing is going to be to put 2 cuts into the top here and here. Now these cuts need to come, I guess, around about maybe 1/3 of the way down the length of the box. So just so that it's nice and clear for you to see. Okay, that's about how far we're going to be cutting down, no further than that. And then the same here and the same here along the folds that we've just made. Okay, so I'm just going to put all cuts along there. So those of you that had a lesson in the very first week of term, I think there's only one upper schoolroom group that had that. I think it was Emily Harper's group. You guys will have done something not a million miles away from what we're doing today during that first week. So, you know, you might want to just have that in mind as you're kind of working along. Might help you just to make sense of the way this is going and how it works. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut a sort of like an oval hole in the bottom 2/3 of the cardboard. Now this little hole that we're going to cut needs to start just in from this fold. So there's the fold line, whoops, and we're just going to start here, and there's the fold line, and we're just going to start here. And I'm not going to make this too big to begin with, but it's going to be something like this. Okay, so in with my scissors. Be very careful not to stab my fingers. These kind of blunt-ended scissors are perfect for that. Okay, be very, very careful with that bit at home. Alright, so those are the basic cuts into our piece of card. Now we can start thinking about attaching this to the mask. So what I'm going to do is take my mask here, and I'm just going to place it underneath here like this. Now, the point of this hole that we've just cut is that it needs to be slightly larger than the eyes and the mouth holes in our mask. Now, you will kind of notice, I'll just put that to one side for a second. With this example here that I have been using, clearly there are no eye holes in the front of this mask to be able to see out of. Okay, how does the person see out of this mask? Well, what they do is they see through the hole in the mouth. Okay, so you're actually looking out through the mouth of the mask rather than through obvious eye holes. And just in the way that you've kind of sculpted eyes separately, these will be stuck attached to the mask, and there will be completely different positions to where your actual eyes will be looking out. So this is the kind of groundwork for that structure really, okay, allowing us to have a space, a hole that we can see through, which we can then build a mouth or a beak or whatever it may be, and we will be able to see out of there like that. Now, what I've done here is I've cut my hole for my eyes and mouth slightly too small. It needs to be a little bit lower and a little bit higher than that. It's in line with the bottom of the mouth, and I actually need about 1 centimetre or so above and below. So I'm just going to make that slightly larger. The exact kind of tidiness of this hole that you're cutting is not super important, okay, so don't worry about it being kind of symmetrical oval or anything like that. That's not particularly critical actually. But what's important is that it's the right size. Okay, that's looking good. So that's kind of what we're wanting there. Now, this is where we need our tape. Now, you're going to be doing lots of little bits of sticking with this tape, and you're really going to need lots of small little pieces about this sort of size. Okay, so what I recommend you do is you start off just by tearing yourself lots of little pieces like that. Okay, a few more. And that way you don't need to keep reaching back for the tape over and over again. It's a good idea to have all that ready to go. So here we go. The first piece of the tape that I'm going to put on is just going to be to stick across here. So down that kind of middle strip that we've cut here, I'm just going to attach it to there, being careful not to cover the eyes. Now at this point I'm going to be quite careful. I want to try and get that central strip of my mask here, I want to get it kind of nice and central between the eyes, down the middle of the face. That's going to be kind of quite a good thing later on. If it's slightly offset to one side, it's not the end of the world. It just means that your creature, your monster, will have a slightly wonky, lopsided face. I guess some of you might want to go for that actually. You might want to do that deliberately. But I'm going to try and get mine down the centre here. So a little piece of tape like that. Be very, very careful not to get this tape too wet at this stage. Because these are only slightly larger than a postage stamp, I recommend licking the tape here to dampen it rather than dipping it in water or anything like that, because you could find that the tape is too wet and doesn't stick properly. And with this, we're looking for quite instant, quick, immediate sticking to make this nice and easy. So just another piece on there. I get this nicely stuck. And another piece on that side. Okay. And then also I need to just put a bit on the bottom here as well, just to stick the chin in place as well. So a little bit there, put that piece going across. What I'm doing is I'm putting my hand inside the mask as well, so I'm kind of pressing from two directions, if you see that, to get that tape to stick really, really well. And get in there and be quite kind of physical with it actually. Alright, Cool. So that's the basic attachment at the front of the face. Then we're going to lift that up and pick that up. Now, if you've done that properly, that should already be holding in place fairly well, like this. If it's not kind of gone quite well, or if there's a piece of tape, you see that little bit there is coming a little bit loose, just secure that. It's worth taking your time with this, okay, making sure that everything is securely stuck. Okay, just hold that for a second or two. Good. Yeah, so it should be holding in place like this. Now, the next piece that we're going to do is going to be this central strip, and it's going to go back to the head like that, just there, so that it kind of holds, whoops, if I flip that around, so that it's holding to the kind of curve of the head like this. All right, so I'm not pulling it super tight. I'm not allowing it to distort the overall shape of the base mask. Just pulling it back to there, and a piece of tape, again holding that in place like so. That's good. And then this piece, so the two side pieces are going to kind of come around slightly, and they're going to pull in slightly from the sides like this, which kind of is going to give us that type of kind of curved shape at the front here. Okay, don't worry if it doesn't pull perfectly tight under here. It's all right to have some little gaps under there at the moment, that's fine. But it wants to be something roughly like this. So we're going to do these one at a time, overlapping like that. So one, oops, and probably the kind of the biggest mistake, or one of the only real mistakes that you can make with this from a technical point of view, is not to let that tape stick for long enough. Okay, so you might want to kind of sort of rush on and get through to the kind of the next stage or whatever, but I really recommend that you give yourself enough time, or you give that tape enough time to really stick. Because if things start to come unstuck, that's when it kind of becomes frustrating and you've got to go back and do it again. So plenty of time, make sure that's stuck and secured. One more for luck. Like that. So we're starting now to take shape. These two side pieces now can be pulled around like this, and you remember this little kind of tab bit that I left at the beginning, and this little piece on the other side, the equivalent bit on the other side. These, we're just going to fold them in slightly, pull them around, and we're just going to attach these, whoops, come here, just gently around the back of the mask. Again, being very careful, we don't want to distort the shape of our paper mask, our base mask. We want to make sure that we keep that as true to the shape of the wearer's head as we possibly can. So that's going to go there. A little bit more. And same at this side. Okay. So you kind of like you kind of got like a sort of Batman type kind of shape now, right? With these two sort of horn type kind of flat things sticking up at the top here, and this kind of sort of fairly straight-sided cowl type effect with the face just visible here. The last thing that we're going to do is just fold in these top pieces. I'm just going to take a break for a second while I tear myself up some more tape. Just run out of little pieces of tape. I'm just going to let that set for a moment while I get that, and then we'll come back for the final stage. All right, so we're getting ready now just to complete the kind of the shape, the overall shape of our mask by folding in these remaining side bits at the top. Notice how what I've done here, first of all, I've just trimmed the top of these just to make them about the same height, and just to make them so that they're not too long. When you're folding these pieces in, they only need to come to about the middle of the top of the head like this. They don't want to be stretching right over in a big sort of comb over style right over here. They just want to be coming over to the centre around about there. The other thing that I've just done is I've just put a couple more cuts in there, so just 2 more cuts like that to split this up into smaller little pieces, and the same at the other side there, so 2 more cuts in there just to make that a little bit easier to fold in. What those cuts are going to allow us to do is get a little bit more shape as we start to fold the thing in, a little bit more of a kind of curved shape across the side of the head like that. And this is just exactly the same process as we used for the first few pieces. So a little bit of tape, folding over to the centre, and lots of pressure holding it down in place. So just quickly put these in. I'm coming into there. Now, it's quite important, I should just point out as well, when you're folding in these side pieces, you want to try and get them as tightly kind of curved in like this as possible, so that you're not leaving large gaps underneath here. If you're pulling them in and they're kind of like this type of thing, and you're getting large looping spaces like that, that's no good. Okay, so you want to try and keep them in reasonably kind of close like that, so you're getting fairly kind of tight shape like so. The other thing that's a good idea at this stage is if occasionally you just put an extra piece of tape in which sticks the card onto the actual mask itself, rather than just sticking to the previous pieces of card underneath. So that's just going to go in there. And then this one. Like so. And again, I'm trying to keep my thing here reasonably symmetrical, but it really doesn't matter if it doesn't go that way. Okay, so if it comes out slightly wonky and weird at this point, as long as you haven't got these large holes underneath here, that's going to be fine. By the time you get to the last little pieces coming back in, it should be pulling kind of back in. It's almost like the crown on the top of the head, not the kind of crown that a king wears, but you know, the sort of point in the centre of your head where all your hair seems to kind of emanate out from. That's the kind of sort of central point, I guess, if you like, here. So these are starting to pull in, and what that's doing is it's creating the sort of curve around the back of the head here, which is what we are wanting. So that's the last one there. A little bit more tape just to secure that to the back like this. And there we go. So that is the point that we are trying to get to today. So it's almost like this sort of like helmet type structure, which is going to be a base upon which we can build other things later on, but it's still revealing and leaving the space here for us to be able to see out as the mask develops and builds up. Strength is important, okay? We've still got a little bit of flexibility to be able to kind of move it, take the thing on and off. And we're not coming too far around the back here either, we're still leaving a little bit of a space here. So that's that. This is what we're trying to get to the end of, by the end of today's lesson. if I just bring in from previous lessons here one of the eyes that I have made before, what I want you to start visualizing and imagining at this point is that this eye, once we've sort of trimmed around it slightly, we're going to be able to start applying this to the side of the head like that, and you're going to start to hopefully appreciate how this then begins to form something which is going to completely transform the appearance of the head of the wearer. But that's going to be in weeks to come. The purpose that this thing serves here, this is like a base structure upon which to build upon. So yeah, so that's where we're trying to get to. Yeah, have fun with it. Good luck. Once again, don't forget to post what you're doing onto Padlet so that your teacher can see. And in live lessons, if you want to just kind of watch the video and work along with the video during the live lesson with your teacher present, so that if anything doesn't quite work, you can ask them for help, then that's absolutely fine. You can do that. So yeah, good luck, have fun, and we'll see your work on Padlet soon.